I'm Zach, and this is The Populace. So we're back with another episode where we want to take the Christian message and the biblical worldview and apply it to really what's on the mind of the populace and what the questions are that people are asking today. So we want to show the world that the biblical hope is far superior to anything that they have to offer. And in that spirit, keeping true to that, for today's episode, we're back at it asking college students a question about the relationship between religion and politics. What I love about this question was it really gets to the heart of what people believe the law is and which moral vision will inform our public policies as a society. So we asked, at the college level, should religion shape our laws? And here are some of the answers that we got.
In your opinion, should religion shape our laws?
I don't think it should shape all our laws, but I think it should shape some of them.
No, definitely not.
I think it depends.
America's a big melting pot of all kinds of different people, and if we want to keep it that way, we got to let everyone believe what they're going to believe, you know.
I am a Christian, and so I think it just really depends on what's being, put into those laws, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying that every single person has to follow it because, of course, they may not identify with it, but if one does follow a particular religion and if they do think that, hey, this is something that should be enforced, then why not?
Religion is not something that's supposed to be classified as anything. It's more of just practices and traditions that people follow just for their own lives. I don't think that should be coming into a public forum where it's shaping our lives. I don't think that's fair also.
I know that things like the Ten Commandments are probably very important, or like things like that. I'm a firm believer that religion and government should remain separate.
Okay.
However, in just today's climate, it's kind of what we have to deal with. So it's hard to separate it, is what I want to say, because a lot of things in religion teach things that should just be law. So like, don't kill, be a good person day to day, don't be doing stuff like that, Yeah. But at the same time, there's some things that aren't covered in like the Bible that we also need to address in our laws. Should religion shape our laws?
I think not directly, but I think religion informs the values of the people that do shape the laws.
Okay.
So I think that's the sort of relationship between religion and laws.
Now that we've seen a sample from the populace, let's hone in on a dialogue that I had with a professing Muslim student. Now, I think this interaction, taken in its entirety, proves that the connection between our religious beliefs and civil laws is inescapable. But let's go ahead and listen to a portion of the conversation.
I don't think that's the best idea, because when you're shaping the laws based on a certain religion, that's always going to be laws that help that certain religion more than the others. So I believe there should be some sort of open-mindedness when it comes to setting laws, and religion shouldn't be the basis that it's constructed upon.
He says no to the question because one religion will be favored over another, to which I say, yes, that's unavoidable. Someone's religious views, while personal, are never just private, because they inform the way that we live and the way that we ought to treat our fellow man. So how I would respond to this would just be to say, yes, ultimate commitments are inescapable, and we'll advocate very strongly for the things that we believe, if indeed they are true convictions. Let's do some more.
So you don't believe that belief, for example, is something that should be compelled, right? People should be free to worship how they see fit, to have religion, no religion. Would that be accurate to say?
I do believe in religion,
Okay.
and I think everyone should be allowed to do what they want to believe, that sort of thing. I think that's specific to a person and their thing. But I don't think laws of a country should not be based solely upon just one certain religion. I think all religion should be considered when it comes to that sort of decision making.
So to this idea that all religions should be considered when making laws for the nation, well, what about when those laws or the beliefs of that religion contradict one another? You see, every religion has competing values and truth claims, because every religion is intolerant of at least some belief, some aspect of what it is convicted to be the truth on, or on the claims itself that it's making about ultimate reality and the nature of the world, right? Every religion is exclusive to some degree and excludes or discriminates against things that it doesn't find advances its cause. And Christianity is no exception to this. Jesus claims to be the way, the truth, and the life. So there is discrimination there. If you're going to be a Christian, there is a way of living that Jesus does not tolerate. And the point that I'm trying to build a case for here is that these things go beyond just our personal convictions. They extend out into the public square. Let's keep going.
When it comes to how people treat one another, social settings, certain societal things that we would say, no, that's not okay, or yes, that is okay, is there a particular value system that you think that is common for everyone that would inform those types of social norms, for example?
Well, firstly, I think all religion believe in openness, right? I think that everyone believes in accepting people, regardless of which religion you're saying, Islam, Hinduism, Christianism. I think we all say that all religion, the whole thing about religion is being open with other people, and no religion says that like we should hate someone for not believing in our religion, right? So if that's something that's portrayed in like any sort of laws, then that's going against religion itself, right? So that's what I think.
Having my beliefs represented and affirmed as the wisdom that should govern the society that I live in does not mean hatred for those of different beliefs. You see, the issue here is that every religion produces a different culture, and all of us, once again, discriminate based on what we find to be true and the values that we want to see put into law and the kind of things that we want as our public policy. And if I believe as a Christian that my worldview is true, I'll advocate for that in the public square, and I'll use the means at my disposal to elect others into office to write them into policy. A little bit more.
Do you think that the kinds of laws that people put place, let's say they're a practicing Muslim like yourself, or even a Christian like me, they have a political office, so they're a representative, or they're a senator, for example, and they're responsible with putting forward the kinds of laws that they agree with, that they support, that they think would be good in order to live in a peaceful, just society. Do you think that their religious beliefs should have anything to do with that? Like, for example, if they put a belief, or if they put a particular belief that they hold near and dear to their hearts into proposed legislation that says, no, you can't treat this group of people this way.
I think when you're in office, right, you're not representing a religion, you're representing every religion of every person in the country or in the state. Yeah. Okay. So let's just say I'm in office, right? Yeah. Like, I can't be making laws that only help me, right? I got to think of everyone else.
My question to this would be, is that what consistent Islam teaches, though? Promoting laws for the common welfare of all, not favoring Muslims and a Islamic culture and their way of life. I think history itself, as well as portions of the Quran, testify that that's not the case. And if I could go back in this interaction, I would point to a couple references there that speak about slaying the infidels and fighting against Christians until they feel subdued, because in the end, Islam will prevail over every religion. In speaking with this young man, I didn't get a great indication that he affirms and believes the totality of the Quran as the holy book in Islam. He seemed to have a more loose perspective, shall we say, as a Muslim adherent. But that would be the question that I would ask, is what's coming out of your mouth consistent with the word of your prophet? And how devoted are you to the words of the prophet? I can say that Christianity is the religion that best promotes the common welfare of all, because it says truth is what converts, not the sword. And that would be the question that I would have in a religion like Islam, where it says in the text of its holy book things like glorifying making others convert by force. Am I reading that correctly? Is that what Muhammad taught? Is that what the Quran teaches? One more.
I can't just, like, if I come to power, I can't put forth laws that only help, like, my religion. That's just not happening. If it helps everybody, then maybe, I can suggest the idea of it. But if it's something like, forcing people to, adhere to my personal beliefs, no, that's not right.
Yeah. Although you would believe, I think sincerely, that your religion does have a semblance of the truth and that you want people to believe that. You'd want to win them at least, right? And you wouldn't see the laws as an extension of that proclamation at all? You'd see them as completely separate?
So which religion is correct in your opinion?
I was so glad that he asked that. In case you missed it, the point I'm getting at again with him is that these things can't be separated. I'm a Christian that believes the words of Jesus. He is the truth, and his word is the standard for good and evil, what's acceptable and unacceptable, not just in my life, but in society. So if the ethical system of Christianity is what I'm to live by, that doesn't stop if, say, I'm elected into office and now I'm a representative. Everyone has a standard. And my conviction is that the Bible is that standard that best promotes human flourishing, because when it's not only the desire of the people's hearts, but the law of the land, it is what brings blessing to everyone as the basis for the common good. Here's the thing. Everyone has an ethical framework from which they derive their values, and these values are always tied to ultimate realities. This is what makes the task of lawmaking inescapably religious. It's not a question of whether someone's morality will be legislated, but a question of whose morality. To find the God of any society, just look to its source of law. The American Christian, aware of his heritage, states unequivocally that the source of law in his nation, and any other, ought to be the voice of God contained in the Christian scriptures. That's the foundation for life, liberty, and every subsequent blessing. All political issues are moral issues, and that morality will be defined by an ultimate standard. This ultimate standard is the religiously anchored, irreducible commitment held by believers, Christians, that's God and his word. The allegiance of unbelievers is to the false god of their own autonomy. But every social order is a theocracy, whether we're talking about Islam, whether we're talking about secular humanism, atheism, Hinduism, right? There's no such thing as a neutral state or a neutral social order. All societies, everywhere, have a concept of divinity and will impose the law of their gods of choice. So the choice, when it all comes down to it, is this: the law of God or the law of man. So this is the part of the show where we address the questions left in the comments on the previous episode, and that was the conversation between Lecrae and Will Smith. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some of your guys' questions. Is there a connection between the Gnosticism the apostles John and Paul addressed in the first century and many of the ideas of progressive spiritualism today? Know thyself, go through all sorts of experiences to find enlightenment and salvation, etc. If so, is Gnosticism trying to sneak its way back into the church today? God bless you. I think that's an insightful question here. I definitely think that there are some elements of Gnosticism at play, kind of this idea that you yourself are the divine spark, or that there is a divine spark within you, and your job is to get at that. And it's so subjective that only you can get at this subjective secret knowledge by self-exploration. So if you mean in that sense, is Gnosticism kind of making a comeback? Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, not only in the church, but in the culture, right? There's this emphasis on who I am in an immaterial sense, but not on the physical, biological aspect, right? We see this in the cultural hot button topics like transgenderism, for example. So I think that's insightful. Next, I think one thing that you're getting at is a pretty good idea. I'm sure Lecrae was trying to shut up and listen instead of steamrolling Will Smith with talking points, but if you never push back or provide an alternative understanding, you're not really evangelizing at all. My fear with these evangelifish is that avoiding an uncomfortable conversation is more important than preaching the gospel, and they use shut up and listen as a defense for their cowardice. You could very well be onto something here. I know that the experience that I've had with watching Lecrae when he's interviewed, for example, by a quote-unquote secular reporter or news agency, and these types of conversations come up centered on homosexuality, spirituality, there does tend to be a very standoffish attitude taken by Lecrae. You know, he starts to suddenly question whether or not he can judge someone based on the behaviors that they're committing, which the Bible does give us truth in terms of what lifestyles are appropriate in God's world and what he detests. And I've never really heard a solid defense from Lecrae on that. There's a lot of hemming and hawing and kind of dancing around that. So again, I don't know what kind of conversations he's had with Will offline, but I sincerely hope that there was a challenge of some kind presented, or at least, hey, why don't you think about this, Will? Have you thought about it in terms of what the Bible says here? I would love that kind of pushback, and we didn't see a lot of that in the interview for sure. Lastly, who cares what Will Smith believes? He is not a Bible scholar like Bart Ehrman or a genius like Christopher Hitchens. No, you're right. He is neither of those things, but one thing that he is a cultural icon. And yes, I think he's fallen out of favor in a lot of circles and even in the public eye in the last couple of years or so, whether you're talking about his family life in shambles, his marriage, or his Oscar slap against Chris Rock and that whole debacle. It's all been a disaster. So yes, you're right. He's not this genius or textual critic like Bart Ehrman or this, very articulate atheist like Christopher Hitchens was, but he is still a cultural voice. And Christians like Lecrae that are giving him a platform now to express this spirituality does still require a careful Christian analysis and response from believers that are steeped in the truth of God's word so that we can learn to spot the difference between counterfeit spirituality and biblical Christianity. Thank you so much for watching. This has been our review of some of your guys' questions. Continue to leave us feedback and comments on these videos, guys. We greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.